UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the United Federation of Podcast Network. I'm your host for today, Chrissy, and joining me are my co-hosts, Brandon and Justin. Justin, how are you doing today?
Don't know why there's no sun up in the sky. Stormy weather. I'm doing great, and I had to do that because that is one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite movies, and I'm so glad they pulled that in from Discovery.
You have a lovely singing voice.
Oh, thank you. And I tried practicing over the last, the last couple days, because I was going to do it whether or not the episode title was inspired by it, but that it was, I was like dying with happiness about that. But thank you. I haven't sung in a long time, actually.
Very cool.
But yes, I'm doing so good on multiple levels, and one of them is because they use that song. So
Lena Horne needs to get more recognition.
She is legendary. And of course, as you encouraged me to do, Chrissy, we will be talking about the movie whose title this is kind of inspired from. Later on, I'll do a little like classic movie corner, which will be fun.
Yes, so. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Yeah. And how are you doing, Chrissy? I feel like I just stopped. Yeah.
I am doing quite well. Just was a great episode. Looking forward to talking about it, and then jumping headlong into the holidays. You know, eating a lot of good food. I don't know why that was where I went with it. I don't know. I was thinking about food, but that's what happens when you're a lapsed Catholic. You don't think about like going to mass or anything. You just you're like, what's the holiday about? Food and presents. Good deal.
We didn't see anybody eat anything in this episode, I don't think.
I think you're right. Grudge probably had a treat to get in that box.
That's
so
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Anyway.
Well, let's see. I was going to ask Brandon how he is, but he has not shown up yet. I wonder where he's at. Do you know anything?
Maybe we will find. We'll find out.
All right. Well, we'll find out. In the meantime, before we jump into our topic for the day, we'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon patrons who make our show possible, particularly our associate producers, Justin Oser and David Willett. Listeners, we would love to add your name to this list, and we can do that with your monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/UFPEarth. Also, don't forget about the Boldly Go project. Celebrate Gene Roddenberry's centennial by sharing what gives you hope for the next century. Go to boldlygo100.org or use the hashtag boldlygo100 to show what makes you optimistic about the future. All right. And now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, we can introduce our guest. Welcome to Infinite Diversity, Abby Sommer from the First Flight podcast.
Hi, I'm so glad that you guys had me on today. What an honor.
It's wonderful to have you on. And now we can say we've had both hosts of the First Flight podcast because we had Melanie as well. So yeah.
Thank you for thinking of both of us.
No problem. Yeah, I listen to a lot of other podcasts, and then I think like, oh, they've guested on this podcast. They need to be on our podcast. Wouldn't it be great if they? So like, I have this list, and you know, even with all the Star Trek that's going on, it takes me a while to like go through my list and invite all the people I want to. And there's more people I find out about every day, but we're really grateful to have you here.
So a lot of podcasts, a lot of people to talk to. I love it.
It's a good community to be a part of.
It is indeed. Well, since this is the first time that you're joining us at Infinite Diversity, tell us about your Trek history, please.
Well, I grew up in a household with a father who was just kind of a general sci-fi fan. And I remember the very first episode of Star Trek that I came in contact was TNG's The Royale, which was something.
Nice. It is something, but I love that episode.
Yeah,
it's so
me
weird.
too.
But I was like, 8 years old-ish, and I just remembered the spinning door and nothing around it, and I was absolutely hooked. And then I became the Trekkie in the household, but not the one necessarily with the control of the TV back when that was all going on. So it took me a while to piece everything together, but my parents were pretty cool with letting my obsession grow. And I had a best friend who was also into it once I got into it. So we were the ones who were wearing the communicators to school, and we were watching episodes with like the encyclopedia and the nitpicker's guide and all the reference books and all that. And it's just kind of always struck a chord with me and always been something that I look forward to and I find a lot of meaning in. And in particular, I really enjoyed Enterprise, which is why I'm part of the First Flight podcast, because that was right when I was graduating college and stepping out into the world on my own. And it was kind of my show and my rock in everything that was going on in the world and all the changes. And I have found a lot of joy in podcasting about that and finding all the people in the Star Trek podcasting world. And how awesome to be a Trek fan right now when so much else is going on and you just have copious amounts of everything. And now as a mom, I'm getting to introduce my daughters to Prodigy, which has been the best part of 2021 for me, because they're so into it and they're obsessed. I've got one who's a Gwyn fan and one who's a Murph fan. And whenever we play, they always make me be Captain Janeway. And I'm like, well, why do I have to be Janeway? They're like, you know everything about the Federation. It's like, that's going to make me cry because that's an awesome compliment. So Trek just kind of has always been a part of my life. And it's been one of those things. I know sometimes people get a little weird when they're in high school and college. And I was just like, whatever, I don't care. This is part of me, like it or don't, but I'm a huge nerd and I love it. So that's kind of my origin story there.
Oh, that's amazing. I have to ask you a few questions since you host a podcast about Enterprise, and we don't get to talk about Enterprise much here because we're talking about the new Star Trek. We talk about, canon connections to Enterprise and stuff, but tell us, do you have a favorite Enterprise character?
Oh, that's really, really hard because well, it's interesting because I've watched Enterprise more times than I can count. And I would always have probably stuck with T'Pol. Like, she's always resonated with me. I've kind of always had a connection with the more logical, emotionless characters in Trek overall. But as we've been going through and rewatching, it's been really interesting to look at it from a different lens and really analyze it. And I'm finding that it's not, I still love T'Pol, and she's my favorite probably of the big three, but I am coming around to a much deeper appreciation to Malcolm Reed than I ever thought I would have, because he was always one of those characters I was kind of neutral on, but this rewatch is really, really changing my mind. And I'm really appreciating how Dominic Keating puts a lot of subtlety into all of his choices. And it's very interesting to go back now and where I am in my life and what's going on in the world and to see him. And I've got a new appreciation for Malcolm.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah. No, I really enjoy Enterprise as well. And every time I rewatch it, I do get a different perspective on it, for sure. Yeah. And I have to ask, because I'm trying to remember, do you read the Star Trek novels?
I do. Not as copiously as I did in my youth when I had every single one and read it within days of coming out. But I have. Once I've had kids, it's been a little harder to keep up with everything in a timely manner, but I binge a lot when I have the time.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious when, you're talking about Enterprise and Reed and all that. I think they do some really interesting things with the characters in the novels that take place after the series. Have you read any of those?
I have. And I think that might be part of what's giving me the newer appreciation coming back, is because I've done a bunch of those before I started the podcast. So it's interesting to put all those different worlds together. It's a nice expanded view.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Okay. I'm just curious. What was my... do you have a favorite Enterprise episode?
Well, I'll give a little teaser because I think that I know this will come out beforehand, but my favorite episode of season 1 is in the back half and it's coming up very shortly. And that would be Fallen Hero, which I really have an affinity for. Yeah. And out of all of them, I don't think I could pick just one, but I enjoy some of the ones that are more character driven as opposed to action driven.
Is Fallen Hero the one that has the Vulcan ambassador who's played by Fiona Flanagan, who also plays Data's mom? Okay.
So she's a fantastic character. And I enjoy T'Pol, as I was saying. I like her journey, and I like her coming to terms with not being the typical Vulcan. And this was a really big turning point for her. So I really like that one.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Abby. That is very cool. Enterprise doesn't get enough love.
It does not, especially in an anniversary year like this. I keep waiting for like something to pop up and be like, yes, Enterprise, 20 years.
Yeah.
And we're coming down to the last few days. I don't think it's happening.
I don't think they're doing it.
No.
It's happening in my heart.
Yes, in many people's hearts. So that's all right. Maybe they'll do something for 25. See, they're biding their time.
Maybe.
See, they're saying, we're not going to deal with this one. We're going to do the big one in a few years.
I'll come back to you in 5 years and we'll see. It's always the forgotten one, but
when we have that new series that is, Enterprise, the early Federation years, when that happens.
That'd be awesome.
Or if the DMA ends up turning out to have a big Enterprise connection, which is possible. There's some interesting theories. Maybe it'll get some more love.
Well, we just have one piece of news to mention today, and that's I'm very excited about because there's going to be a Discovery comic series that features Grudge.
One of the issues features Grudge.
Yes, one of the issues features. Grudge is the important one. Who cares about everyone else?
Okay.
I kid. No, it looks like it's going to feature Grudge, Adira, Detmer, and Linus. So we're going to get some backstory on them, which is great. Yeah. So what do you think about that, Abby? Do you ever read any of the comics?
I'm not a huge comic person, but I was pretty intrigued by who they picked to feature in these comics. Like I am all for Grudge appreciation. I mean, she's a queen, right?
Yes. She is a queen.
She's queen. But I'm really interested in looking more into Detmer, who I find a really interesting and compelling character, and Linus. I mean, hopefully he won't be sitting under a heat lamp for the entire thing. Because
I was going to say, maybe the whole issue is him sitting under a heat lamp while he contemplates his life and his choices.
I just think it'll be cool for them to do that as a comic because they can do a lot of things that would cost a lot of money in visual effects that wouldn't cost as much if you just draw them in a comic book. So now's the time to really look at Linus and do some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to find out exactly what kind of, I don't know, shape-shifting being Grudge is. I really want to know. Maybe not. Maybe it'll just be like a day in Grudge's life when Book's off doing something else and she's exploring the ship and maybe some mysterious aliens come in and she has to repel them and save the day and nobody else knows about it.
Holy smokes, I am so disoriented. This is the craziest thing ever. What is happening here?
You are in the year 3190. You're aboard the USS Discovery. We're investigating an anomaly. We can't see anything out the window or with the sensors. Can you help us with what's going on?
Okay, yeah, I can help out. Justin, I just want to say how mad I am at you right now because you told me that you were going to pull me out of the transporter buffer.
Oh,
me just sitting there and you just left me in there. Like, that is disorienting like you wouldn't believe. Like, I can't believe it. Like, seriously, man, it's like this border place between heaven and hell where dwell those souls who, though not condemned to punishment, are deprived of the joy of eternal existence with God in heaven. Like, it was just this weird, bizarre limbo, man.
Brandon, you were only in there for like 15 minutes. Scotty had to deal with that for 75 years. Yeah. So why are you complaining about?
He's a better man than I am, man. I'm going to need to sit down with Culber after this one and talk some stuff out.
Yeah. Well,
take a shot of green liquor.
There you go.
Hey, we got a guest. Hi, who's this? I'm getting caught up.
Abby from
Hey, Abby, how's it going?
Podcast.
It's Brandon. Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, too. I'm glad that we rescued you from the purgatory of the transporter buffer.
Me too. Excellent. So, what I missed, guys?
I don't know. We just talked about... I sang. You missed that. Sorry,
yes.
I'm not going to do it over again for you. You'll have to listen to
Send
the podcast.
me back to the transporter buffer.
Chrissy said I have a lovely voice, Brandon. It wasn't bad.
He does.
Let's see what else happened. We talked about Abby's history with Star Trek and some of her Enterprise favorite characters and episodes. Nice. So you can listen back.
I will catch it on the listen. I will listen back. Absolutely. Excellent.
But glad to have you here. We will try not to forget bringing you back again. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I thought, we had 3 people. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll be right back. I know it was only 15 minutes. It felt like forever. I just got to go to the bathroom here because it felt like I was holding it forever. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, good. I thought you were going to go for an Austin Powers joke there, and you didn't, and that's good.
Welcome.
All right, then.
Well,
so now
we
that
should
we're all
ask
here,
Brandon, what does he think about the comic?
Oh, gods, yeah.
The Discovery Comics.
Yeah, you looking forward to the Grudge story?
No.
He's not.
I know.
He's evil. He doesn't like Grudge.
Like the other one, sure. I don't know. I really do not understand the fascination with everybody in the Grudge cat. Good on you if you love the cat. I think it's nonsense and ridiculous, whatever. I didn't like the Porthos comic though either, right? So like whatever. I don't know.
But the Spot comic was good, right?
Was it?
Yeah, you don't remember that
I
one?
liked
It was good.
What was it?
It was
Okay.
good.
I'll take your word for it.
All right, fine. It'll be great, and you'll come to love Grudge like you never have before. Yeah.
I want, if we're getting something, I want the Linus comic to be the Valentine comic with Georgiou and Linus. That's what I want.
Yeah. I
That would be perfect.
I didn't think about that. Oh, that's perfect.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. I said before, if it's just him under a heat lamp, just wondering like about his own existence and what's going on the rest of the ship while it's all these things are happening, that'd be cool. Yeah.
That would be funny since they announced it this week alongside this particular piece of information.
Yeah, probably not. But anyway, it's coming sometime next year. They didn't give a specific date, right?
No, I don't think so. We'll let you know when it happens then. And we'll probably talk about it. Maybe?
Probably.
Yeah.
Because we like to talk about even the short types of fiction, right?
Yes, we do. What a wonderful segue to our discussion of the short stories in the first issue of the Star Trek Explorer magazine, which is just the old Star Trek magazine with a new title and starting the numbers over.
And
but
new
it's still
fiction.
good. Yeah, and fiction, which is good.
That's why I'm subscribed to it, is for the fiction, really.
Yeah. I was very surprised because I had an electronic subscription through Barnes & Noble to the old one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new one just showed up. They just kept the subscription going. So that was kind of cool. You know.
And it showed up at your house as a print copy. Yeah. Because I think that's what they're doing.
I did the print copy because I didn't think about the electronic one. I thought it was just done. So
I thought so too. But anyway, I think it's a cool magazine, but we are going to, I guess, talk about each of these stories, and maybe we'll get into spoilers for the stories. So I guess if people don't want to hear spoilers, they're short stories. They're like 4 or 5 pages, but hopefully it's not like universe changing stuff that happens in these, but they're pretty cool, and there might be spoilers. So you can probably flip ahead a little bit if you don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I think listeners, if you paused right now, you could probably read all 4 of them in less time than the rest of this podcast will be. Yes.
If you have access to them, because I think it's taken a while to get these print copies if they're print copies. But,
yeah, that has been strange. But
I think we've all read these stories now, right? Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Good deal. All right, well, I guess we'll start with the first one in the magazine, and that is All That Maddens and Torments by Christopher Cooper, and that is set in TOS era.
Yes.
Kind of?
It has Kirk, so we can continue
iffy,
at TOS.
But Kirk's the main one. So,
I just want to say how crazy it is that we got, one of the stars of American Beauty here wrote a short story for Star Trek. Like, this is weird.
Is Christopher Cooper a star of American Beauty?
No, Chris Cooper is. I'm assuming it's the same person.
I don't know. It says novelist, comic strip writer, cartoonist, and playwright. Maybe it's a different person.
It's a bad joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was taking your joke in way too literal of a sense.
It happens.
Yes, Brandon. Yes, that's great.
Yeah. How strange, because neither one of those names are common at all. Right. Okay, so, Abby, you're the guest. We'll start with you. What did you think of this little short story?
Well, I really enjoyed this one, and I enjoyed knowing what was going on well before Kirk did in the story.
Oh, yes.
Which is always interesting when you're an audience member and for whatever type of media, and you know something that the characters don't. I think that always adds an interesting layer. And I loved that he brought up that he's already got a connection with the whales. Like, that was such a neat little throwaway that if you didn't get it, it didn't matter. But if you did get it, you went, aha, that's cool. I see what you did there. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting. And I think it was very interesting that all of these, spoiler for all of them, have that Q component in them, and in really different ways than you thought of Q. But all the authors of them really found him very much in character. And I could hear the lines in the voices that they were supposed to be, especially Q's. Mm-hmm. And this one I really liked because you do always wonder what would Q have done if he had met up with Kirk, just like when you wondered about Cisco and then you went, oh, well, they're not going to hang, are they? So
not anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I really liked this one. It was an interesting little bite of it. And I know listeners of the podcast, you can't see, but I wore my Cetacean Ops whale shirt in honor of the whales getting mentioned.
Excellent.
Because I think that's kind of fun that's all come around in this year. Is there's been a lot of aquatic life in Star Trek lately of one type or another.
Yeah. It occurred to me as I was asking you that I should probably give a summary of this first, because I'm thinking like our listeners have seen the episode and I didn't do that. Okay.
You didn't watch the episode with Kirk and Q?
Yeah.
The whales?
And the Nexus. Right. So, Kirk kind of like not quite wakes up, appears on a sailing ship. He's the captain, so he's at the wheel. And then he's in a storm for a bit. I read this a few days ago, so I don't have a good summary in my head. And then Q shows up, and he doesn't know it's Q. And then you get a little bit of Moby Dick playing out, except it's Khan instead of
Khan is on the other boat
Ahab.
Or something.
Yeah. And then it just kind of it's Q's trickery.
Well, my one sentence summary is Q's a Kirk fanboy and wanted to get in some moments with him before he went off and did his Nexus thing. So it's kind of what happens. It's like, oh, this is my opportunity to hang with you. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I thought this one was interesting. I totally didn't catch that it was in the Nexus for a little while because I was like, what era is this? When is this going on? What's going on? But I found their interaction kind of interesting, and I guess it fits because, he's seeing him in the Nexus, and Kirk, he feels, is not going to be able to tell anybody else about Q because he feels like he's going to get stuck there. But that Q has this interest in Kirk is... Yeah, because I think at a certain point, Kirk makes a reference to the Pequod from Moby Dick, and Q's like, Picard? So, like, it's, clear he knows all about Picard. But yeah, I like this one. I thought it was interesting. But like all of them, it's pretty short. And I felt like there's just like little bits here and there. But it was an interesting interaction.
Yeah. Brandon, what do you think?
So on a whole, for the four of them, first off, just summing it up, I was surprised that they were all so short. They were only about 5 pages each. I think, like, if they were to get feedback from me as a listener, I think that a better option would be to get one 20-page story. Rather than 4 or 5 page stories. Myself, like, Stephen King got his start, writing short stories for magazines and whatnot. And a lot of his collections were these stories that were in magazines, and they're long 10, 15, 20 page short stories, and whatnot. So I don't know. I think I'd personally like something with a little more meat on their bones. But again, like you guys said, I like the idea that they're all had a theme of Garak.
Q.
Of Q. Sorry, I've got the one with Garak open up on my page.
I know that the one with Garak is the one you wanted to be 20 pages, and me too. But.
Yes.
Well, honestly, any of these ones here, like even this one with Kirk, right? Like the one with Kirk I thought was really neat because I'm a big fan of Generations. And so like this transition period, this transition period between the two, like, was interesting. I thought that the boat sequence didn't quite seem to fit for me. I mean, like, because basically when this happened would be like the exact moment that the boat sequence transition would have happened in the film, right? Like, where there's the boat of them giving Worf the promotion.
Oh, I thought of it as something completely separate from that.
I did not make that connection.
So like, right after he's dead on the Enterprise B, right, is kind of when this happened, right? Yeah. And so like they check off and Scotty say their thing, and the next scene you see is a boat. But the boat, like he didn't really. I mean, I know that we have this naval history in the original series, movies and whatnot, but that one felt a little bit out of place, and I guess a little bit with Khan and Star Trek 2, but it was okay. It was good. So.
Yeah, I liked the boat connection because I also thought that it was kind of a transition from the like original series people on the Enterprise B in Generations into the boat scene with the promotion. But I liked that it was Moby Dick because I felt like that was also kind of a call and a connection to First Contact, where they talk about Ahab and the whale and all that.
That's true.
So I think it was it was kind of wrapping all of that together. And I was wondering which part of that had been the inspiration for this little fic, because there's so many of those pieces that came together here. So I thought it was kind of neat like that. And I'm kind of the opposite of you, Brandon, when it comes to the story length. I like the little bites because I think it's really hard to do a very short thing well. And the fact that we can sit here and talk about all 4 of these tiny little bites for longer than it probably takes us to read them means there's something there. And I'm speaking for myself only. I've read a lot of fanfic over the past few decades. And you know when you read a good 4 or 5 page fic and when you read one that you're like, right, so I don't get those minutes of my life back. So I appreciate the little bites of these stories and that they're from different people. And I think they were all done pretty well. And the fact that you wanted more means they did their job.
Yeah. I agree.
See, the reference, though, to Moby Dick, for me, I associate that more with Picard than I do with Khan, right? Because more with the First Contact. So that's kind of why I think it felt a little out of place to me. Because it's there in Star Trek 2.
Yeah, Khan is kind of quoting from Moby Dick, like from Hell's
right,
Heart.
but if I said what Star Trek movie makes you think of Moby Dick, you wouldn't.
Well, I'd say First
Star
Contact,
Trek 2.
but I like First Contact as a movie more than Star Trek 2, so that's probably why I would think of it first. So anyway, but also the Moby Dick connection, the title, All That Most Maddens and Torments, is a line from Moby Dick, so they very much wanted to tie that whole thing in. Yeah. So it was interesting because I was visualizing it and just thinking about Kirk and Q together, and I thought that would have been really cool if that had ever happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that connection. I have wanted to see that. I've wanted to see Kirk and Q and Trelane together because we got the Enterprise D crew and Q and Trelane in Q Squared, but I would like to see the others. So
was it in Q Squared or Q Continuum? Oh,
no,
yeah,
I
guess it's Q Squared.
Q Squared.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
That's one of my favorites.
Oh, that's really good.
You rarely hear me say this, but the idea that Q created the Nexus is just a little too small universe for me.
I don't think they said that
impression from this.
Yeah, it did. He said just a little something I cooked up or something. I couldn't remember enough to give a summary.
I thought he was cooking up the scenario, not the Nexus as a whole.
Oh, well, maybe I read it different.
Yeah, which part? Because I did not get the sense that Q created the Nexus.
Oh, well, what about you two? What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't get that impression either. I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me.
I'm looking at the story, but was that toward the end of the story?
It seemed like it was.
I thought he was just playing in the Nexus because, like, they talked about this was the test about everybody's transitioning into the Nexus. They have some sort of test, and I kind of took that as that Q came in at that vulnerable moment and kind of twisted the test to be his own thing.
So let me quote from it here. I think it's toward the end of the story when they're talking about the Nexus and let's see. I think Kirk's saying something like, "This is all you. That's what you said." Did I? Q looked evasive. Moby Dick, the Pequod. I conjured them from my mind, my memories. You did. And this too, this Enterprise. Kirk looked around his bridge, recalling how much he loved his ship, his crew. I control this reality, and Q remained silent, which means you can't go anywhere without my say-so, Kirk reasoned. So Kirk actually, toward the end, is controlling what's going on in this scenario, because he's in the Nexus in this scenario that Q created. But I don't think Q created the Nexus itself.
Okay. Then I'm wrong.
Okay. No, it's interesting you thought that.
It's interesting that fiction can give people their different interpretations, and
True.
you know that's part of what makes it a good story is when you can read it through your own lens and get something out of it either way, even if it is small universe.
Mm-hmm. I will always remember Amy Tan. That's who wrote the Joy Luck Club, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Amy Tan said once that when she found out that teachers were using Joy Luck Club in classes for analysis, it didn't make sense to her. And then when she found out what they were saying that she meant to write that she never even thought of, she thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, I'm very much paraphrasing because she used more intelligent words than very cool. But I always think of that when you get such a different interpretation from a group of people or just between two people. All right. Well, the next one, we jump to the TNG era. It's called Q and False. This one is by Lisa Klink. So very well versed in 24th century Trek.
Yeah, especially Voyager, right? Because I think she wrote some stuff and was story editor on Voyager. Yeah.
This one is, you've got the Enterprise D crew doing some diplomacy stuff, and they're supposed to bring this world into the Federation, and they find out that there's a minority population that is basically removed from the other society, and part of the reason for that is that they worship this god that nobody else worships, or that the rest of the society has moved away from. And then it turns out to be Q, because he
likes people worshiping him.
Yeah. And then he demands that Picard and the Enterprise crew, who's with him? It's Deanna and
Troy
Worf.
and Worf.
Troy and Worf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he demands that they basically take a knee to him. And in order to save the day, Picard does, which I think is a very interesting
Because they're doing human sacrifice and they want him to stop that.
Oh, yeah, I missed that part.
Yeah. Which, I thought this one was really interesting because it fits very much into like the early TNG Q that's about like playing with people and everything's a game and he doesn't care about like mortal considerations. It sounds like the kind of thing an early Q would do. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't feel, I don't know, the tone didn't feel right to me, but I didn't think about it in that, oh, this is before he gets booted from the continuum, because he is different after that.
Yeah.
So good call on that. Couldn't see the uniforms, right? Couldn't see if Riker had a beard, Didn't know what it was.
and they have all these illustrations that are from like different eras of Star Trek, and so you can't really tell if it relates to the story or it just kind of looks cool, because they have like Picard in like a season 1/2 uniform, but then before that they have like a little painting where it looks like they're in like First Contact era uniforms, kind of. Anyway, but sorry, I wanted to interrupt that because it felt like early Q. But what did you think of this one, Abby?
This one was interesting, and I love Lisa Klink, and shouting out the interviews she's been doing on the Delta Flyers.
Oh, yeah.
Which has been going through every single episode of that show so far, and some really interesting interviews with her, especially if you listen to the Patreon part of it. So highly recommended. Not only do the Patreon for these guys, but do the Patreon for Delta Flyers, because you get a heap ton of extra bonus stuff. And this is very Lisa Klink, and Lisa Klink is very like 90s Trek, and that's what this felt like to me, that the stakes were not as high. Even though they were talking about human sacrifice, it was more of a playful tone Q than something really serious. And even when he brought up the moral dilemma of, well, Picard, I won't sacrifice them if you sacrifice yourself. Will you do that? And he said, well, no. And he goes, well, what if there was 10 or 100 or 1,000? And there's that little bit of like moral dilemma that 90s Trek would always put in there. But then at the end, they found a way around it anyway, by saying, well, if this planet's trying to apply to the Federation, and it would really help if they reached out to their neighbors, and then look, if they talk to these people, they might realize that Q is not an all-powerful god who just wants their candied fruit for some reason. So I got that 90s Trek vibe from it. Was it my favorite of the four stories? No, but I appreciate the little bite and the kind of the ambiance of the entire thing as a whole.
Yeah.
I'd put this one as probably my least favorite of the four as well.
Really?
Like, to me, it felt like Picard and them, when they were like, we can't get involved because of the Prime Directive. It's like, well, the Prime Directive's already being violated, right? Yeah, it's been violated by Q, but it didn't fit quite right tonally. And I don't know, him bending the knee to Q didn't quite feel right to me. I mean, I know that we had him in Q Who, where he's like, I need you, Q, right? Where we had that, where he was asking for help once before, but it didn't quite feel right for me in this situation that they ended up with this. So
I agree.
That's interesting. I mean, actually, if we're ranking them, I think the Kirk one is probably my least favorite. I really liked it, but I felt like there wasn't enough for me of interest, and I felt like for this one there was more of interest to me because they're trying to join the Federation, because they have this minority that they're overlooking. They're like, oh yeah, we didn't want to tell you about those people. They're not important. So it's about the importance of, all people on this planet. And I like that. And I think Q is a really interesting character, and like how you see him differently at different times. So again, I felt like this fit really with early Q. And to me, it felt like it fit with Picard, because if he really is getting no choice, it's like human sacrifice continues, or you bend a knee and pledge loyalty and move on. That felt to me like, yes, he would do that if he was convinced. So I appreciated this one. I thought there was more to it for me that was interesting than the TOS story.
Okay.
Anyway, that's how I felt.
I don't know. I agree with Brandon. It did felt out of character for Picard to... Maybe it's just because it was so short. Maybe there had been more to the story. Because like, by the time you get to the end of Q-Who, there's 18 people that have been killed, and that hole carved in the hull. So it feels a little more earned, maybe. But
okay, well, it's interesting. Oh, and I guess we should say, like, these first two are actually in the magazine themselves, and then we're going to do two more that are in like a digital supplement. So, and
let me say here, reason to get the digital supplements, because the two that were in that were way better than the two that were actually printed in the magazine. So they're doing their supplementary Patreon style ask for more money correctly.
But I think I'm trying to remember, like, for the digital supplement, I got it because I subscribed to the print magazine. Is that how you get it, or does that come with like the digital? I don't know. Maybe listeners will have to tell us. But
it didn't come with the digital through Barnes and Noble Nook, but that's
I got it because I subscribed to the print one. But
that's how I'm under the impression that you get it.
Yeah, you get it by subscribing.
See, I'm still trying to deal with them to get my actual copy of the magazine. I haven't got my copy of the magazine yet.
Yeah, so Chrissie thankfully has gotten it and provided us with it. But it's super interesting because, like, I saw these TOS and TNG stories and I was like, I like these. They're good. And then you go into the digital supplement and I'm like, oh yeah, Una McCormack and James Swallow, who are just like top flight, like, novel authors. And I'm like, this is kind of where it's at, and it's in the supplement, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of made me laugh because it was in the midst of coloring pages, which I absolutely
adore.
there
are coloring pages in there.
So, yeah. That's great.
Did you guys print them off and color them?
No.
Maybe.
Did you print them off for your kids?
Yeah. Yeah,
they have definitely not watched Discovery yet. They're too young for that amount of serious. But every time they see a Delta, they walk around and go, Star Trek, Star Trek, Star Trek. So, but I also enjoy coloring as a form of just relaxation. So, but some of these are going to be really hard to color unless I go a little disco crazy, because I'm not quite sure how to. I'm not the best when it comes to making things look realistic. So, maybe we'll have some adventures.
As long as you have fun with it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, this thing's long. Oh, like 10 pages or coloring pages. Okay. I'll skip to the story.
It was pretty cool.
Anyway.
I like this next one the best. It's called A Night In. It's Una McCormack, and it is Garrick locked in a cell on DS9, and he has Q in the cell with him. And Q is very Q-like in that he's kind of taunting him, but also trying to make a point. Shows him what Cardassia looks like after its destruction by the Dominion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think this is season... I think it's season 4-ish. It felt like to me, because it seemed like they were referring to stuff from the Dias cast, but I wasn't sure where to place it.
It's definitely in the time when Odo is a solid. Because he gets cut and he eats breakfast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which was...
I think...
season 5, wasn't it?
Was that 5 or was it part of 4?
Season 5. It was the finale of 4 that he got solid.
Okay.
Was it? Okay, so this is probably in 5. Okay, so I was wrong about some of that. Okay, but it's season 5-ish.
Right. Yeah, but they are referring to the stuff in the Dias cast and all the rest, so...
Yeah, no, I have to ask a question at the beginning, like, because I think it says he's in jail for, like, sabotage and assault and somehow avoided a charge of attempted genocide. Like, are we talking about something that happened on the show, or are we talking about something that we didn't see on the show? I wasn't sure.
Was this when he blew up his
shop?
his shop?
No, that was because he was being hunted down by Tane's
Yeah.
associates. No, I took that as referring to he was involved in the attempt to destroy the Founder's planet.
That's what I took it as well.
Right. And he's still there in jail for that some months later. Okay. That makes sense. That's kind of what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, Una McCormack write a whole novel with this. Or maybe a novella.
I mean, if David Mack can write a short story about the Mirror Universe and then turn it into a novel, why not, right?
Well, you say short story, but that original one that David Mack did in the Mirror Universe was like 180 pages. So,
Justin, why do you got to get all technical like that? Like, why get all technical? Okay, you write a short story and you turn it into a novel. Let's just do it.
Anyway,
so.
If it's shorter than Game of Thrones, then it's a short story. There you go.
Yeah. So,
well, Abby, what'd you think?
I think this one was really interesting. And I mean, who amongst us does not love Garrick? I mean, Garrick is one of the most fascinating, nuanced characters. But you can also kind of say that about Q and Odo, there's some other bit players in the story, but they're the main three. So it was really interesting to see that dynamic and to see Garrick having a conversation and interactions with both Odo, who we see more of, and then Q, who we haven't seen before. And with all three of these characters, it's almost what they don't say as opposed to what they do say. And I think that Una McCormack does a great job in all of her writing, and this being no exception, of leaving some of those pieces or telling you what they're thinking, not what they're saying, or telling you how they respond physically, but not telling you anymore. So you fill in some of that. And that really helped to keep kind of that air of mystery around all of them. And I loved the little details she threw in, like, Garrick's in jail, but somehow he managed to sneak a fabric cutter under his pillow just in case, because that's the most Garrick move ever. And about how everybody knows he could just get out and go amongst his merry way if he wanted to, and he's not. And as much as Garrick makes choices for Garrick makes very careful, plotted choices. So does Odo. Q, we think, seems a bit more reckless, but when you look at things overall, he usually has the long game in mind too. So it was a really interesting three people to weave together into this little bite of a story, and to show some of the emotion that Garrick has about Cardassia, which we hadn't seen a ton of in the series up to this point, but we know is there because we've seen the seasons that come later. So that was really nice. And I also now totally in my head believe that Odo has a sweet tooth because he puts too much sugar in his Rectagino. So that's my headcanon now forever. Odo's going to be sugaring everything.
I love
He's got
it.
a gummy bear habit.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I really love this one. I think it was my favorite of the stories. I mean, it has Garrick. You can't lose with that. And Una McCormack writes Garrick in such a great way and is so fascinated with Cardassia. And I think there was definitely this interesting part where it's like Garrick could leave whenever he would want to. And to an extent, like Odo could go off and do something else, but it's like, where else do they have to go? It's like they've been exiled from both of their societies at this point, but they have that in common, which is really interesting. So anyway, I thought it was a great story, and feel like Q's being fascinated with Garrick.
I thought this one was really interesting because, like Garrick and Q both make such an impression on the Star Trek franchise, So to see the two of them in a short story together even is pretty amazing, to have these behemoths of both of their series. I mean, I know that Q showed up in Deep Space Nine once and showed up in Voyager a couple times, but he's really associated with TNG. Right. But Garrick, I mean, I don't remember the number. I think it's like 30 episodes that he was in, but he feels like he was there all the time. Right. So, and same with Q. Q was in 12 or 13 of the whole franchise.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
But he kind of feels like he's there all the time too. So, I thought this was neat to just see the two of them go at each other and head to head, talking in the cell. It was a really interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, well, the last one is The Offer, and that's by James Swallow, and this is set in the Enterprise era, right before Broken Bow, well, a few months before Broken Bow. And in this one, Archer's coming back from meeting Saval on a Vulcan ship, and he's not happy about the meeting, and he's taking a shuttle, I assume, back to Earth. So
Yeah.
They're in orbit, and then Q is the pilot. So
his name Quebec is his name
Quebec.
actually.
Oh, Quebec,
yeah.
excuse me.
Yeah.
That's
Quebec.
Yes.
Quebec is the pilot, just like the other guy was Quinn.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and then he shows him the schematic. Well, he takes him into the engine room of the Vulcan ship and shows him the schematics and gives him the opportunity to take them. And Archer says no because he's Archer. So
Yeah.
This one was actually my favorite.
That was your
This
favorite?
was my favorite of them all. I like this one a lot because, it's always it's that era of like early Enterprise, right? Where like Archer's pissed off with the Vulcans and whatnot. But even here, even as poorly as he feels the Vulcans have been treating them, he's like, you know what? I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to do this right. And I'm going to do this right by my father. And I really liked that. I felt that was very, very Jonathan Archer. And it felt like the right type of finale for a Q story because, it made me think of Hait and Q, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, kind of Riker fails the test where he accepts the Q's power and he thinks he understands what everybody wants, but he doesn't, right? And here Archer's like, no, I don't want to take your bait. I don't want to take this at all. Like he doesn't really know who Q is, right? But I don't know. I just liked it as a nice finish to a Q story. It felt very true to me.
agreed.
I read this one last too, and huge Enterprise fan, so no surprise that it's my favorite, but I think it would have been either way. I also agree the characterization in this one was perfect, and I thought it was interesting at the end that Q mentions that he was trying to go back to the beginning of all the Federation and Starfleet and all that to find someone who was a little bit, more reckless and a little bit bolder and willing to take chances that later on they aren't. And then he says, well, you're already Starfleet. And that's kind of interesting. And that was so Q, but such a great through line. And it's very true because a lot of times Archer gets criticized for what we saw on the show for not knowing better or not, being a Starfleet ideal. But yeah, he is. He's just the one who has to figure stuff out first. And this was a great little show of his character. And he did think about it and he was impressed. And let me tell you, the writing in this is great because when they're inside the Vulcan ship, I'm picturing this in my mind. Like I'm reading the words, but they were so well done.
Mm-hmm.
I had the whole mental picture and about how other people are seeing them as Vulcan, but they're not seeing each other as different. It was so well written. And for him to say, oh, I'm looking around and I can already tell what's going on. And, I can already have some ideas. And then to know his memory is going to get wiped and he's not even going to know about this offer. It's kind of that reset button, but it's a nice Archer moment here and kind of an interesting Q one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll just say briefly, I agree with everything you guys have said. I love this one. I thought it was really great. I think it's just a little bit below the Garrick one in my rating of it, but it's still a really great story, like really great kind of leading up to Enterprise and who Archer is and who Starfleet is. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one as well. So definitely the two in the digital supplement were I enjoyed more than the two in the print magazine, which is so interesting.
Way better.
Maybe it's their way of getting everybody to make sure they're having that digital supplement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think you only get it by subscription. But I got to talk to them because I ordered the subscription and I didn't even get the link for the digitals, right?
Nor
Like
did
I haven't
I.
even heard anything.
They said, you know what? He's in Canada. He won't need that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. But yeah, for some reason, I got the email with the digital supplement and you didn't. Oh, well.
but you haven't gotten your hard copy yet, right?
I have not, but they did say the first issue comes within 12 weeks of ordering, and it hasn't quite been 12 weeks yet. So,
Okay.
anyway. But yes, it was enjoyable just to talk about these and read these stories for sure.
For sure. All right, well, let's get started in the Discovery episode that we came together to talk about today, and that is the 6th episode of Season 4, Stormy Weather, as we learned from Justin's beautiful singing at the beginning.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what's our initial thoughts on this. Abby, taking the episode as a whole, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think last week's episode was one of my favorite of the entire series of Discovery. So I was really hoping this one lived up to that. And while it didn't top last week's for me, I really liked this one. And I feel like this one was very different in tone and in pacing than a lot of Discovery episodes. And that's not an unwelcome thing when you think that this is about halfway through. I mean, slightly under because, 6 to 13. But what a nice break from like all action and go, go, go and pedal to the metal to do a little bit more of this, because there was still a lot going on, but it felt more measured throughout. And we had a lot of quieter moments and we got a lot of information in a lot of different ways. And I really liked this one because we had the entire bridge crew doing stuff, and the people who weren't necessarily even bridge crew doing something. Everybody had a little part. And I know so many people cry out for, more backstory and more of everyone. And they've been doing that this season, sometimes a bit awkwardly, but this season, minus one thing that I'm sure we'll get to, I feel like they did a lot of character growth and a lot of information dumping, but it didn't feel like this is where we put in plot exposition and this is where we put in character development. It felt very natural. And I really enjoy that they are doing more and more and more with the Zora storyline, which I personally think is very fascinating and has a lot of interesting possibilities and connections that could be made. And I don't know if anybody has looked ahead to watch the Ready Room and the little clip from next week, but there's, I'm ready for it to be next Thursday already.
Cool.
Because it looks really interesting. And when I think that this one is going to feel like kind of the middle part of a book where there's a lot going on, but you don't realize how much they had put into place until you look back on it later. Because I see things and I'm like, I want to know more. And what about that? But I think they're going to come back and connect it. I think they're laying a lot of groundwork here. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that tree that Michael makes is beautiful.
Oh, I know.
Oh man. And I loved that Tilly was on it. Yes. And Reno and all the supplementary people. That made my heart happy.
All right, Brandon, what did you think?
I really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a different pace and, kind of a breath of fresh air in the season. I thought it was really awesome. I had to double check and make sure that this wasn't directed by Brian De Palma or something like that.
Jonathan
Frakes.
Like
when we got that opening sequence there with like the sliding line of like the swipes. I'm like, what is this, Sisters? Or, this is just something really odd to do. And this has never been done in Star Trek before.
I wouldn't say
so
never.
It really took me out of the episode. I cannot think of another moment that something like this happened in Star Trek.
No, I've been noticing it because there was that one time in a podcast you talked about the wipe that's on North Star and Enterprise. So there have been a few times, but it's more rare. Yeah.
But this one here was with the thick line.
Yeah,
right?
It was like a 70s
drawing attention
effect.
to it. It's absolutely right. And like it's okay to do that in TV once in a while. Like my immediate thought when I saw this, I'm like, okay, what do I think of this? Because it's a neat effect, but it feels very, very weird. And so like the first thing I thought of was Triangle in the X-Files. Right. So it's a season 6 episode of the X-Files. And I'm like, but the thing with that is that whole the panning and the two things happening on either side of the screen at the same time is like built into the storytelling. Like it's a part of how that episode is told. And this is just done for like a weird effect. So I don't hate it. It just was like really stood out to me. Like it's a neat effect. So that's like the major thing that was like right at the beginning of the episode for me. So, but it was really good. I thought there was a lot of tense moments in it. I thought it was a wonderful problem. I loved seeing everybody getting involved to solve it. Mm-hmm. And I'm really intrigued by the Zora plot line and what's going to be happening here. It gave me thoughts of what's the episode where the doctor feels guilty for letting the one crew member die and saving Harry Kim.
Oh, yeah.
Made me think of that one.
Latent Image. Yeah, Latent Image.
So kind of made me think of that episode there. So, but, and then obviously I think they were referring to The Void and the animated episode.
I don't know because from the reviews I saw, everybody had different impressions for what they were referring to about Enterprise and like Voyager stuff. So it could be a bunch of possible things, but.
Yeah, I was thinking The Void was the reference, and then the TOAS episode when they like went into that darkness and space and all those ships were in there is what I thought they were referring to.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it could have been Nagilum too. I mean, there's a lot. It could still be. It could be the Sphere Builders from Enterprise still, because they had that weird space. I mean, there's a lot.
Enterprise has seen a lot of messed up areas of space, so it could be any one of them. So.
And it could be, just briefly, like it could be just how I was thinking about it, because it's not the same thing. But I thought of Voyager's Night, like there's nothing out there to give us any reference for what we need to do, and this is really disturbing. Was there any more you had to say about your initial impressions, Brandon? No.
Loved it.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. So I really love this episode. So, I mean, first of all, like, there's a lot of Zora in here, and ever since I first saw Calypso, I've been fascinated and love the Zora character, and this is more that we've gotten of that character since Calypso. And what I really like, and this is something Discovery has done, especially this season, there's something new that comes in, like in the 32nd century, whether it's like Admiral Vance or President Rillick or Zora or whatever. And each time they have made the decision, like, this is not a bad person or a bad entity. They're fundamentally good and dealing with things the way that they can. So I just really love Zora as a character. So that was a real favorite thing. I love that we got more with Gray and with Book, and like the problem they had to solve was really great. Like, I felt, even though it's in a way one story, they're stuck in this rift and how do they get out? I thought it was very nuanced and very layered, and I just love the whole feeling of it. I think I wrote in my little mini review on social media, for me, I think this is one of my top 5 episodes of all of Discovery. I just loved the whole feeling and everything about it that much. So I loved it.
All right. I liked it as well. I felt like there was a real theme of understanding your place, understanding one's place in what's going on around them, where the things you have control over, the things you don't have control over, the way you can overcome any issues, particularly fear or anger, within that context. So I thought that was very good. All right, so let's jump into the subspace rift here. Was I the only one who thought that this was like Remember Me in the warp bubble?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that either, but interesting.
Yeah. So yeah. I was
too focused on those two that I mentioned. I didn't catch that connection either. Yeah.
Would it not be awesome if all of this comes back and like the Traveler or Wesley or something comes back and it's all a big bubble?
I thought that would be fun.
What if just for a second we just had a flash of Dalen Quace just in front of them?
Yeah.
That would be random. That mustache is epic.
Yes. Okay, well, so once we get into that void, I'm going to just jump right to what is going on with Zora. I thought it was very interesting the way they set up the idea of the sensory overload. And to me, it felt like somebody describing a panic attack, or it felt like I have experienced having panic attacks. Mm-hmm. And I loved what Gray did because it reminded me of that, like, the sensory response that I was taught to do to deal with a panic attack. And in case anybody doesn't know, and use this in your own life, it's helpful. You pick one thing for each sense. So you pick one thing you can see to focus on, one thing you can hear, one thing to touch, smell, and taste. And it helps to refocus against whatever the panic is whatever's causing the panic. And I loved that. So
that was really great. Yeah. I mean, Gray kind of like counseling Zora on this and trying to like focus her attention was really great. I mean, and then from that, Zora's like, okay, I'm focused now, and there's this thing on the hull. I need to do what I need to do because the hull breach is coming, but somebody dies, and she feels really guilty about that. I thought this is really interesting because now we are definitely getting into the territory of Zora is really a sentient being that has feelings, that feels guilt and fear and anxiety and all of these things, and is probably going to need some counseling. I mean, I think it's amazing. Like, they've done a good job, I think, with mental health overall in the season, especially with Book, but now we're going in that direction with like this artificial life form. So I just love that. And like thinking about the possibilities of this, I think is really great. But
agreed.
Well, to piggyback off that, I think that where we are in the span of the pandemic right now, this season has really been a balm to myself, and I know other people I've talked to about, because I mean, Discovery has taken some knocks for being all about, trauma and emotion and all that. But I don't know about anybody else, but I kind of need some of that right now. This has been a long go as someone who works in a school and has a young family, and they can't all be vaccinated yet. And, this has been a big stressor, and to see how they're working through it has been amazing for me. And to see those emotions and everybody's everybody's doing what they need to do to get through, but they're also trying to make themselves okay at the same time. And I think having Zora as part of that now is really interesting. And what a parallel to like when Data got his emotion chip and started feeling overwhelmed. And I think about back to Generations again, that scene in Stellar Cartography where he's like, I don't really want these emotions anymore. And you kind of almost get that from Zora too. She's like, I can't do this because I feel stuff now. And I'm not capable of doing things when I have an emotion like this. And that's going to be really interesting to see how that grows and expands. And she definitely seems to want to have the captain's respect and trust and to have the crew have a good relationship with her. So that's going to be very interesting because where does the computer fall in like the command structure when the computer has feelings? You can't just order it the same way that you would a regular Starship computer. So I think that's going to be very interesting. And I really like having Gray as that kind of emotional, spiritual component. I think that's going to be interesting to see Gray come into that and to see how that works with not just Zora, but other people too. But I do wonder when Gray figured out that there was going to be this big issue, how come Gray took the turbo lift instead of just beaming to the bridge? Like, are there only certain people who can beam onto the bridge? Because later on, Gray beams right onto the bridge. So I was like, you got to go fast, beam. You got the little thing, hit it, go. Don't take the turbo lifts. You never know about those things. So that was my one little thing that took me out of it. Because you see Gray go dashing off the side of the screen, and I'm like, no, beam.
I thought about that a little bit, but I think that has been a problem in different parts of Star Trek as well. Like they want to run to the bridge to tell them what's going on instead of doing site-to-site beaming. But like I think Gray, it's interesting to pair up Gray with Zora because Gray is adjusting to this new body and this new kind of way of being. And Zora kind of is as well. And I think it was in one of the reviews, and it makes you think, like, does Zora want to have like a body to walk around the ship and interact? But like your question, Abby, about like ordering around a computer, that could be a problem. But at the same time, like the people in Starfleet are sentient beings with emotions you have to order to do things. And so you have to kind of deal with it the same way. They almost have to deal with it like she's a crew member instead of a computer that automatically does stuff, right? It's a crew member that you order to do stuff, but maybe they resist or they're having emotional problems or whatever. Like you have to deal with it the same way, which is interesting. It's like an additional level.
But Zora didn't enlist. Just Book didn't enlist and Gray didn't enlist. Like they're not Starfleet. I mean, Zora is Starfleet because she was built by Starfleet, but she did not choose to be Starfleet. So that's interesting too. Like where does that? It's a very gray area.
It's a pretty gray area, but I mean, if it comes from the sphere data, which kind of like merges with and doesn't want to leave Discovery, like in a way that's a kind of choice, but it's not like a conscious choice necessarily to be there. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of interesting issues we could talk about for a long time, and I want to see how they address. But Brandon, like, what do you think about what we see of Zora?
So I liked the conflict with Zora. You guys have mentioned Data with his emotion chip and whatnot. I mentioned earlier the Doctor from Latent Image and whatnot. Like these are things that we've seen before. I didn't quite like that it was Gray that was the one to work with the computer. Like it felt kind of like a forced in plot. Like I've been wondering where they're going to go with Gray, on this season and whatnot. And like, I almost think this would have been better with Culber, but I mean, we've had a lot with Culber so far, and I guess Culber probably would have been busy with something else. So it was just like, well, Gray's the only person who's not doing anything. So this is the person that we give the story to. So I don't know, like it was okay. It wasn't bad. It just felt kind of forced to me. That's all.
But think about it this way. Gray is training to be a Guardian, and a Trill Guardian has to kind of be responsible for the well-being of, all these symbionts in the symbiont pool on Trill, which is, I mean, it's basically like a symbiont is just like a bag of consciousness, kind of, right? Like in a way that's just waiting. Well, but that's just like their whole thing, and they're waiting to be joined or whatever, right? So like if that's part of his training, it makes sense that there's this kind of consciousness that's coming into being, and that he would have some training or have some ability to kind of handle that or deal with that. I mean, I don't know. It to me somehow, like I made the connection to that, and it kind of made sense. I liked it.
But he's coming to his own as well, because he's just been put into a new body, right? And I mean, like if he's non-commissioned, then Zora, even the information that Zora gave him shouldn't have been given to him, right? Like, this got destroyed and this is happening here and whatnot. Like it just felt forced
For you.
plot line.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't terrible. It was just like, yeah, okay. So this is the first Grey episode, and like, this is how they did it, and it just wasn't quite what I was wanting. What do I want? I don't know, but it wasn't this. So
All right.
for Grey, that's all.
I was wondering if they were setting him up to take over as the ship's psychologist.
I don't think so.
Let
I think they've
Culber
really
go back
set up
to
Culber.
being an MD. But,
I think that they're going to continue to pursue the plot of Grey going to Trill, because Grey says, I'm still studying to be what did you call it? I can't remember the name. The Guardian. So I think they're going to continue on with that, and we'll get something at some point. So
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, and then there's the other person that Zora interacts with the most, and that's Burnham. I personally, I'm sure you guys thought of too, when she said please to the computer, all I could think of was LaForge saying to Sonia Gomez, we don't generally say please and thank you to the replicators. So Sonia Gomez, a little ahead of her time. But what did we think about how I just created a new name, Zernham. How Zora and Burnham were interacting.
Are you shipping Burnham and the computer?
Sure, why not?
Works for me.
I think Burnham is the right captain to have this happen, because she is definitely more attuned to small displays of emotion than other captains have been. I think part of that is the Vulcan heritage. Part of that is everything she's been through. Part of that is the fact that Zora chose to at least present as female. And that's an interesting thing, because it almost feels like a two-female friendship. And Zora could have presented as anything. So I think that's really interesting. And I think it has the potential to be really powerful, because these are two really bold, interesting characters on a Star Trek show, both women, one completely non-corporeal. So we don't have any of that like physical comparison going on right now. This could be really powerful. And I really enjoyed when Burnham was having these moments of talking to Zora, and you could see that she has taken time to synthesize what she's been through in these past seasons and years, and to really come to some new observations and conclusions about herself than what we saw from her at the beginning. And, this is halfway through the 4th season, and she has had a lot of growth and a lot of changes. And for her to verbalize it like that and explain it like that shows that she's been doing some of the internal work that some of the other characters we've seen do on screen. This is showing us that she's done some of that off screen, and even more of the synthesizing since she's become the captain and been in charge. And I think that's really interesting, because I think she could offer a type of interaction with Zora that nobody else really could.
Yeah, like I love these scenes with Burnham and Zora. I mean, for all the reasons that you said, but also, Burnham as someone who was raised as Vulcan, right, to kind of handle and discipline emotions, but has this human side. And I think she's been on this journey, like which way that she goes with it. And I think at this point, she's found a really good balance of those things. And can help Zora with that. Like, it feels like she's learned certain things and now can mentor Zora in like what emotions are and how to deal with them, because Zora has the same thing. Like, I'm a logical computer, but I'm feeling emotions. Like, what do I do? So like can help Zora handle that balance. And just recently in my life, especially in my work life, I've kind of found the real usefulness of mentorship, like other people mentoring me and stuff, me mentoring other people and stuff that I have experience with. And it's such an important component. And it's such an interesting thing to think about this sentient computer, not as like a nuisance, let's get it off the ship, or like an emergence or whatever, right? Like, or something that's a problem, but like maybe this is something we can integrate and mentor this character into, what works best for them in this situation. So I loved all of that, and just Burnham being just so supportive, like, you can do this, you can get through it, like, we're in it together. I just love that whole part.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting that Burnham is treating Zora like right off the bat like a member of the crew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's that respect as if Zora's an individual right off the bat. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
so
but I think there's
worked for
also
me.
By this point, like a long history, I think, of these artificial beings that seem to have sentience, like Data and the Doctor, and who knows what else.
But
has
she
happened.
wouldn't know any of that. She doesn't have any of that knowledge from where she was, right?
She might from being in the 32nd century, because they made references to things that they know from the 24th century. So I think she might know those things.
I mean, she did work with Daft Punk there at the start of season 1 of Discovery, right, on the bridge. So I guess there's that. So
I would say. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say remember her training is in anthropology, and so I think as an anthropologist, once she's settled into the 32nd century, she's going to look through the history and cultural stuff.
Yeah.
So she may, is she very well versed on it? Probably not. But is she vaguely aware of it and knew where to look when this started happening with her own computer? Yeah.
Well, and I also think it's really interesting because we have seen Berman's journey to the captain's seat. And we saw her as a part of the crew before she was a leader of the crew. We actually saw her outside of the crew and then part of the crew, and now she leads this crew. So that's a very different type of captaincy relationship with a lot of these people than what you would normally get. I mean, I know there's a lot of industries even now who will say, yeah, you promote from within, but we might send you to like a different building or a different here or there, because it is different and sometimes difficult to transition from being a peer to being, a supervisor or the captain or any of that.
It can be.
And it can be. So I think it's really interesting that Burnham really Burnham really makes good choices of when to be the captain at first and the friend second, and when to reverse that and be the friend first and the captain second. And I think that with Zora, I mean, when Zora first showed up as the sphere data, she was the science officer. So she has a different perspective on the data, just going from raw data all the way to this sentient computer. And I love that obviously enough has happened with sentient AI, however it went and whatever she knows about it, that she doesn't automatically assume it's evil, like I think would happen now if we had sentient AI. Obviously we haven't had the experiences, but she doesn't automatically assume this is something to be wary of. It's just something to treat carefully to make sure that it's done well. And that's a very important distinction.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
Like something mentioned, I think Picard says in Emergence about, if this is the sum of everything that's in the computer about the crew and the people and the society, then, we can be sure that it's going to be good or something like that. Okay, well, last thing about Zora before we jump in, unless there's anything else we want to talk about. When Burnham kept repeating or saying, you can get us out of the transporter buffers when it's safe, I, for a moment, thought we were going to be jumping another 1,000 years. Did you guys?
Oh, really? I didn't think that at all.
Because there was such an emphasis on when it's safe. And I'm like, oh, God, we're going to jump right into Calypso or something.
That's funny.
That would have been a radical choice, but no, I don't think they're ready for that.
Oh, no. It crossed my mind, but then I'm
hey, guys, you gotten used to the 32nd century? Too bad. We're going on to the 42nd.
But that DMA wiped everybody out. It was nuts, man.
We're the only ship left in the galaxy.
So glad you guys didn't stick around for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other big story in this episode is Book, and he is either hallucinating or seeing the ghost of his father. I'm going to leave that up to interpretation. And how he's trying to work through that and trying to work through where that exists in relation to his relationship with Burnham and how he exists in his relationship with Burnham and how that I just repeated myself unnecessarily. I don't know. His father's ghost talking to him about how she's going to make demands of him made me think about how if you have somebody who is functioning alone and independently for so long, and then you start to bring in other people, and how that can actually be very difficult because you're used to doing things the way you like to, and you're not used to necessarily trusting anybody.
But he's been with Burnham for at least a year. She was with her for a year, and then now it's been 6 or 8 months since the end of season 3, and then however long season 3 was. So
I mean, she's known him for at least 2 years, and they've been I think together as a couple probably for a year-ish, something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when you start hitting the is this going to be a commitment thing? But I don't know. I felt his father talking like that. I felt like if that's not his father's ghost, if it's his subconscious, that's him trying to work out if he wants to commit. At least that's how I read it.
Well, the first thing I thought was this guy that they got to play his dad there would make a great Klingon. Like just the way his inflection of his voice and everything like that sounded like he was totally a Klingon. So maybe this is a Klingon plot.
You coward!
And this is how the Klingons are coming into the story.
I'm surprised they didn't cast Tony Todd, actually.
That would have been fun.
There you go. So, I wasn't sure what to make of this, like, because, you know, like they had said some stuff, like there was like evidence that he actually was interacting with him or something, like, you know, like they had some evidence that showed that it wasn't just in his head. So
I don't know about that. I thought the evidence they saw was about these particles that came through, and maybe that influenced like how he thought about it. But is that what you mean?
Well, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Like I'm just trying to figure out what this all means, because this is kind of an odd plot line as well.
Yeah, I was trying to reflect on it because the episode came out today. I haven't had much time to reflect on it or even rewatch it. But like, I think one of the things they've been doing is, you know, we're building up like who Book is. His planet's been destroyed. He's dealing with that grief. And then, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that happens. It's someone's birthday. They're going to come up, right? So like, it was one of those things a bit, but also I liked it because we found out a little bit more. I think we had known before that his father like hunted these species or even transworms or something like that. And I think it's just, he's continuing to deal with having his planet be destroyed and trying to make sense of that, and also trying to make sense of, you know, his father and what he did. I'm not sure if they're going to go further with it. I was just kind of intrigued, but I wasn't sure like quite what to make of it or where they're going with it. But like, Abby, what did you think about this part?
See, I have absolutely loved Book this season, and David Ajala knocking it out of the park every time he's on. I mean, that man's face this season, the close-ups that he gets and just the emotion and the rawness has been incredible. And I think the way I read it is I think he was hallucinating. And I think because he had talked about it being his dad's birthday, that's why his dad showed up, because it was up in the forefront of his mind. Kind of like if you eat soup one day and then that night you dream about soup. It just happened to be, you know, the person that was in his mind. But it also, I think, is him starting to deal with the fact that he's always felt like the other. Like he did not take the path that his dad wanted him to on Kwejian. He went out and he struck out on his own. He was a courier on his own. On Discovery, he's found a family. He's found a very meaningful, impactful relationship for him, but he isn't Starfleet, you know? So he's still a little bit other. His entire planet was destroyed. And so now he's one of the few, you know, people from Kwejian that's left out there, and his species interacts and has this natural empathy. So I feel like he's really struggling for, how do I find my place? How do I find these connections? He was just starting to go back and reconnect with his brother and his nephew, and it was ripped away from him again. And this seems like a pattern for him. Like he starts to open up and get close and, you know, find those connections and come back to some of that. And then it goes away. I mean, we've all been in relationships like that, especially romantic ones, where there is that fear. And I mean, that you would think, oh God, this is going to end and I'm going to be devastated. And I think that might be part of what he's worried about, that if, you know, push comes to shove and Michael picks Starfleet, he's going to be left alone again. And then where does that leave him? And I don't think that's invalid. I don't think that's unusual. I don't think that is something that wouldn't happen to other people that might be in this situation, especially at the point that he's at in this journey of suddenly having lost everything he thought he was going back to find his roots and his grounding. And I think that's really impressive. And I also have to say how much I loved the little Book and Burnham scenes in this episode, because they are small, like when they found each other right before he was going in the buffer and he had Grudge. Those are real moments between like a real couple, like where, oh God, is about to hit the fan, and we need to just have this one moment of connection. And it was very meaningful. But then, you know, still, oh yeah, Grudge and I are tight now. Like that is the kind of things that you see in a real couple, or when they're talking, you know, in their quarters. And it's just, those are so real and so honest and so balanced in this. It's nice to see that he's still reaching for that connection when he feels like he doesn't have it anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And I want to add something that came up in my mind while you were talking. So if part of what's going on with, the hallucination or whatever it is something about a fear of Burnham choosing Starfleet over him, maybe it's the case that bit is kind of given in this part because he has been subconsciously thinking about it, and it comes out in his father saying it's someone that like he's really had all this trouble with as a way to kind of discount that. Whereas if it was like Burnham saying, it'd be like, I don't quite know what's going on here, but putting that in the form of someone where you can just knock it down and say, no, that's not going to happen. But maybe he does really have this fear about it that he doesn't want to think about, right? Yeah, that's just what I was thinking about.
Can I shout out the Quajon fashion too? Like if you've ever heard me on another podcast, I really enjoy the costuming, especially in Discovery. But they have all those beautiful like scarves and neck wraps and like slightly embellished sleeves. Those are gorgeous. They're just so neat. And I can't wait for the Quajon cosplay to come out because it's not that hard and it looks really comfortable. And I appreciate that. So his father's outfit when they're inside like the spore drive and everything and you get the close-ups, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So props to the entire costuming department for not just this episode, but the entire season, because now I look for it. I'm like, ooh, we're going to see someone in a Quajon outfit because they're just that little bit different than what you've seen anywhere else. And they're consistent within each other. So I really appreciate that.
Did we notice that cat carrier technology has not significantly changed in 1,200 years?
It's hexagonal.
Yeah.
That would make it really hard to stack.
I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, Shax is going to hate this.
That's great. But it's quite interesting, this cat carrier.
But how perfect that he went back for Grudge, because he would.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no matter if you like Grudge or not, when you have someone who's that devoted to a pet, you better believe they're putting that pet in the pattern buffer with them. So that was just a nice little moment, because if he hadn't done that, there would have been an outcry.
Oh, yeah. Because Grudge would be dead. So that's, I wonder what happened to Saru's plants, though. I wonder if he had them protected.
Oh, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that.
Or maybe they really liked the heat and they just grew.
Can we talk about Saru for a second? Because this entire season, I have been sitting here going, I didn't realize how much I needed a weekly dose of Saru until I got a weekly dose of Saru again, who is rapidly becoming one of my all-time favorite Star Trek characters. Like, besides the fact that Doug Jones is a treasure and everything he does and touches, the character of Saru is just so beautifully done, but so alien all the time still. Right. There's always that little bit that he's not human, but the discussions, the speeches, when he gets the captain's chair and he gets to make that little speech of, I know we can do what we have to do. And it's just in his cadence and in his voice and his whole presence. And he's so tall and the arms back. And he always has the right thing to say. And then his conversation with Book at the end about anger was so beautiful. And so I did not expect that conversation to be as meaningful, but I watched this twice and then I watched the Ready Room and read some stuff, and that's the one scene that really is sticking with me in this whole thing is their conversation about anger and what to do with it. And I'm not sure we would have seen a conversation like that on any other Star Trek show other than Discovery, and I very much appreciate it. And I want more Saru all the time. When I'm having a bad day, I would like Saru to come and give me an inspirational speech and possibly share some blueberries, because I really am finding a lot of joy and comfort and meaning in his character this season.
Yeah, he's a wonderful character. It's been such a joy that his threat ganglia are gone. Like, the character's changed so much for the better, over the last couple of seasons. But yeah, it was nice to see that too, where he's like, I'm still angry when I see the Baul across the table from me, right? But I've got to turn that into something productive, that can benefit everybody. And, it's a wonderful thing. And I think a lot of people need to think on that, like myself included, when I get angry at things that I can't control and that are affecting me personally.
Yeah. But I just want to quote from it, because I like specifically what he Saru said at the end of that, we are both justified in our anger. Allowing it to be our focus, however, only prevents us from achieving those things which serve the greater good. It is a struggle, yes, but a worthy one. That's just so inspiring.
Perfect.
It's saying, It's saying like, you have anger about things, that's valid because, there's an injustice or there's something you don't like or whatever. That is totally a valid response. But let's see how you can focus it to make things better. It's just such a great message. Really is. Yeah.
Yeah. That really, that felt kind of heavy today. The parallel I got there is, race issues in the United States in the modern day. There's certainly parallels there.
I wonder how that's going to play for Book with the message of anger that he got last week.
Tarka said it's productive. Saru in a way is saying it's productive as well, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm. They're not mutually exclusive.
But there was definite tone differences there. Like Saru's was a little bit more positive. I felt a little more positive after Saru was talking than I did when Tarka was talking,
For sure, yeah.
But that would be interesting if they kept that dynamic. And I'd like to see the three of them have a conversation, to have Book and Tarka and Saru having this conversation and to have, both ends, and then Book kind of, wavers in the middle. And that could be very interesting because obviously there's more to Tarka than what we know thus far. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out into the bigger story and into his relationships with the characters that we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
Well, before we get to that wonderful conversation between them, we find out that this anomaly is from somewhere outside the galaxy.
Yes.
With that...
We better see Gary Mitchell come back.
I was about to say it's hanging out with Gary Mitchell and that thing that pretended to be God, but...
Yeah. Well,
I want an in-canon explanation for James R. Kirk, finally.
Sure. But you know what? I loved finding this out. We found out it's somebody else, but it's something outside the galaxy because it's a rare thing in Star Trek. Yes, in the original series, we had the Kelvins. They're from the Andromeda Galaxy in that episode by any other name. We do have Where No One Has Gone Before in TNG, where they go a billion light years away and they're in another galaxy. But I felt okay, are they opening up the possibility that, because the spore drive, I think, can go anywhere. So why not to another galaxy? So it just opened up this thing that I've wanted to see in Star Trek for a long time. What is in another galaxy? Let's spend some episodes there and see what is there. So I was very excited by this possibility. But
Can I talk about my first thought when this happened?
Please.
And I'm sure this is not going to be the case. This is not a joke. I know that I generally ramp up my jokes like this. Okay, but this was a serious thought in my mind, but I don't think they'll go there. You know what I thought was very weird about the Coda trilogy?
Okay.
Was that Kirsten Beyer specifically asked them to not touch the Voyager plotline.
Okay, I think I see where you're going.
She would have known where season 4 of Voyager was going.
Discovery.
Sorry, of Discovery, where Discovery was going. And if they're heading out of the galaxy, that's the last time we saw Voyager.
And somehow they went into the prime time. Sorry, listeners, this is getting way deep into the Coda trilogy, but they went from the first Splinter timeline over to the prime timeline, and they're in another galaxy, and we're going to see them there.
I don't know, man. That was just my first thought.
That was many years before this, Brandon. So
it was many years before that, but you know what else was many years before this? Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery was many years before this as well. Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm
Janeway
probably
the 60th
wrong.
Over there in another galaxy.
I am probably wrong.
It's an interesting thought.
I fully admit it.
It's an interesting thought, but Abby, what do you think about this? The possibility, or what seems like they're saying it's from somewhere outside the galaxy. Are we going to go outside the galaxy, or what do you think about this?
Oh, I think it's really interesting. And I think this is kind of one of my favorite parts of the season where we have some of the pieces, but not enough of the pieces to actually put stuff together, and we get all these awesome wild theories, and some of them turn out to be things that I'm oh, that would be so cool, and some of them I'm I really hope that we don't do that, and then it hardly ever actually ends up being what we think it's going to be. But it would be very interesting. And I had somebody tell me, they're well, what if it has something to do with Prodigy, and it's a connection to how they've got a protostar inside, and then they can somehow slipstream to other galaxies, and I'm well, that would be interesting, and that would be an interesting connection, and let's see. But there's so many things out there, and what I kind of hope overall is that it's something that makes sense, first of all, And it's something that we know a tiny bit about, but not a lot about. And we can maybe fill in some holes. Like we've brought up so many already. Well, it could be this, it could be that. Let's fill in some holes. And, I always go back to the temporal Cold Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like this could be something we know. It could be not just out of our universe, but it could be out of time. And they've made some references to that this could be from anywhere, any when.
Right.
And that's some interesting things too, because obviously it was put in this time for a reason. Maybe that has to do back with, and we know time travel is outlawed at this point, but that doesn't mean people from other times know that or care about that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
like Alex Perry said last week, it could be by this point past guy instead of future guy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it could be 847 It could be the Sphere Builders.
There's a lot of things. I also wondered though if it could be something new that we've never seen before, and they're actually going to in some way build something up. Although they don't have much time this season, though, it made me think that maybe they'll start to do that and then continue it on season 5 or something. I don't know where they're going with it. I really don't. And I love that.
Well, we haven't had a season 5 announcement yet.
We haven't yet, but I think we will.
Right. I think we will too. But that's an interesting thing because they're not saying necessarily that this is going to be a cliffhanger. Like when there's another season coming right away, you kind of assume at this point that it's going to be a cliffhanger. And it would be interesting if they didn't announce it until the season was done and this kind of did wrap up but give you an offshoot.
Maybe. I mean, I think Chrissy, I agree with what you said. Maybe it was last week or the week before. If this was really the final season of Discovery, they'd want to make a big deal about it. See the final season. So I think it'll get renewed probably in January.
So do I. But I think
it already is. We just don't
could offshoot.
Yeah.
So
maybe this is how we get Section 31.
I don't know.
Maybe the DMA is Section 31.
You know what? The DMA is caused by Giorgio going through the Guardian in season 3. Yeah. But sorry, Brendan, go ahead.
The only thing that I could see, just thinking about it, I tweeted out the other day, like, okay, people on Twitter, what do you think the DMA is? What are some of your theories? And there's a lot of people who said, like, V'ger and, like a lot of things like this. V'ger was actually a very common one. But, a couple people said, and I think that this might be likely with how they kind of tie in these Kurtzman era stuff together. I wonder if we might get something to tie into the, like that, those robotic aliens or whatever that were coming through that anomaly at the end of season 1.
The ones that were from like... Picard. Oh, yeah.
And season 2 Picard is all about time being broken. Yeah. So maybe there's a connection there too. And Q, look at that, coming all back around.
Yeah, because like one thing that we might need to be looking at this in, like this is a different era of Star Trek now, right? Like this is not 90s era Star Trek where Next Generation's here, D Space Nine's here, and Voyager's here, and our big crossover between all of them is when Harry Kim goes to talk to Quark. Whoa, epic crossover. Or when Bashir comes on to see Data. Oh, epic crossover, man. Love that crossover. Okay, like literally they could do something where they're literally tying every single season in to each other.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because recently Alex Kurtzman was asked about crossovers, and he said, yeah, we're thinking about it, but there has to be really good story reasons to do it. So if there is, that's a possibility. And I'd like to see that. I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, so all of those very interesting possibilities, and as always, I'm going to suggest that we go back and listen to them after the season's over so we can laugh at how ridiculous we were.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, this is the part of the season where you wildly theorize, and
you don't
nothing really seems off the table at this point, and that's kind of the fun of it, is pulling all of this knowledge, because the people who are writing and in charge of Trek right now have this deep knowledge, and they're using it, and that's really neat.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right. Well, before we wrap up here, I know Justin would like to tell us a little bit about the movie that they based, that the title comes from, and I guess some of the idea of it. So, introducing Justin's Classic Movie Corner.
Oh, thank you. Justin's Classic Movie Corner. We're running out of time because we've been talking about it for a while, but I'll just say a little bit. Like, I think as I mentioned when we got the title, I thought, I hope that is a reference to the 1943 movie of the same name. It is, and it's the song that's sung in that movie by Lena Horne, who's just such an amazing singer. But that I find it interesting they chose that because Stormy Weather was one of the very, very few movies of that era, major studio production, that had an all-black cast. And they had lots of stars from the era. They had, Lena Horne and Bilbo Jangles Robinson, the Nicholas brothers, Fats Waller, like Cab Calloway. There was like a whole bunch of like some of the biggest kind of black stars of the era. And I think it's a really great movie. I think Lena Horne's great in it. There's also a dance sequence by the Nicholas brothers that I sent to you guys, and Chrissie,
Yes.
I think you watched, and it is seriously one of the best things that you will ever see. You should definitely check it out.
I will put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So like I find it very interesting for that. There are certain like stereotypes in the movie, but for the most part, it was kind of this very kind of positive vision of what an all-black cast could do at that time in 1943. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit and just encourage listeners to check it out, because I think it's a great movie. It's a great kind of document for kind of what was possible at the time. And if listeners are, interested at all in certain things related to classic movies, I watch a lot of them and really love them, and feel free to ask me that. It's another thing like Star Trek that I spend a lot of time thinking about. So anyway, just wanted to say a few words and not give like a huge amount of information, but I loved that they pulled that and that they had that song, which I love. So,
well, I'm just glad it wasn't the one that I predicted in our chat there.
What did you predict?
I thought it was... Sent you guys a picture of Stormy Daniels.
Oh, that's right. I'd wiped that from my mind. Let's not go any further with that.
Yeah, we'll leave that one right there. Justin, thank you for that. As very interesting stuff.
Can I just put in that I would really hope that when the soundtrack for this season comes out, that the version, that Annabelle Wallis sings, this will be on that soundtrack, because it was beautiful. And I like that Star Trek has gone back to classic songs, like really, really classic.
Zora is really like a classic movie fan, because in Calypso, she also pulls from an old movie. Yeah.
Well, and then Blue Skies was everything in Picard. I like how they go back to those classics, and the versions that they always do of them are beautiful. So keep it up, Star Trek.
Yeah,
They do. It's astonishing how much stuff that's not in copyright and or owned by Paramount Pictures is showing up in the 24th and 32nd centuries.
It's pretty amazing, but I love that era of stuff, so I'm good. I'm good with their way of not having to spend a lot of money for it. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, somebody in the future's still got to be watching Walking Dead. I mean, I'm sure Walking Dead's still going on at this point, right? Like, it's got to be season 820.
At some point, Zora's going to be watching an episode of The Walking Dead, and one with Sonequa Martin Green in it.
Yes!
She looks a little familiar. Yeah.
Cat Burning, you're not going to believe this. Come and look at this here.
Your ancestors look just like you.
Yeah.
And this other guy looks like your father, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, there weren't a whole lot of canon connections. We already talked about the name drops for Enterprise and Voyager.
And we talked about relics, which
Scotty being in the transporter without
stuff.
talking about it. So yeah. Anything else we want to add?
I mean, I had a few. I mean, I think Zora says that the name means dawn or new day in some languages on Earth, Navarre, or the Baku Society. So nice Baku thing there. I wouldn't. I mean, there were different references to like stuff that happened in Burnham's past and things like that. But one of the things I wanted to call out, which we didn't really have time to talk about, but listeners, if you go take a look at the Trek Core review of this episode that's by Claire Little, one of the things that I love in there is she talks about how Zora is like the anti-HAL 9000. And I'm not sure how familiar some listeners are with 2001, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And basically, this is a computer that's looking to, kill the people on board. So really not good. But there are all these kind of comparisons that are kind of mirrors of that, showing that Zora is not that, which I love. But like I hadn't thought about it when I was watching it, but she did point by point, like, Hal does this, Zora does the opposite, like, and they flip it around all these other ways. So I think they must have been conscious of it, and I think it's amazing that they were able to do that. So listeners should check that out.
Definitely. Well, any last things we want to mention before we head on our way? Yes, of course. Please, Abby.
I have one. I really hope, and I'm sending this out to the bigger universe, that they take the game that Gray and Zora were playing and make it something that we can actually get and play. And again, if you haven't watched or listened to the Ready Room afterwards, there's a little clip that I'm sure will go up online everywhere in the next couple of days explaining more about that game and how it has meanings, and every piece has either like a song or a story or an emotion. And I watched that and went, I want to play this game.
Yeah.
So marketing opportunity, Star Trek Bigger Universe, please put that game out there, because that's like hitting the sweet spot of all of us big old nerds. So please give us this tabletop game, because it looks beautiful and it looks like it would be really fun and complicated in a way that would be very intriguing.
And I love that they spend the time to put that detail in something that's not going to be explained on screen, possibly ever. So that's awesome. Oh, that's great.
So, thank you, Abby, so much for joining us today. Really had a good conversation here, fun time. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you online, please?
The best place to reach me is Twitter, and I'm at Abby M. Sommer. That's SOMMER. And First Flight Podcast that I host with the fabulous Melanie, you can find on both Instagram and Twitter at First Flight Pod.
All right. Thank you so much. Justin, where can people find you when you're not singing beautifully songs on which the title of the episode are based?
Oh, thank you. And I promise, if there is a song that the future Star Trek episodes are based on, I will sing it if it's a kind of music I like. I happen to like this kind of music. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at TrekFan4747, where I tweet about nothing but Star Trek. And you can find me in our Facebook group, the Federation Council Chambers, where you can talk about this and any other UFP episodes. I hope you will join us there.
Well, I'm looking forward to the episode that's titled Smells Like Teen Spirit. We'll sing together.
That one I will sing. I like your mind, so that works for me.
Yeah.
We're going to get an album called Old Justin Eyes is Back.
Yeah, like Old Yellow Eyes, yeah.
Yes, beautiful. All right. Well, Brandon, where can people find you when you're not stuck in a transporter buffer?
Oh, sorry. I'm sending you the transporter buffer. Okay, you're back. Sorry.
You can find me here on the network with a show called Franchise Fatigue, which is all about movies, remakes, and sequels. And you can find me on my Hitchcock podcast, Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, where we cover all of Hitch's films in chronological order. And Chrissy, where can people find you when you're not sitting in 10 forward Discovery version playing board games with the computer?
Yes, I would like that. In addition to here on Infinite Diversity, of course, you can find me on History with the Szilagys here on the UFP Network, and that is a short history podcast that's twice weekly. I do that with my partner, Jason. And I'm happy to chat about all of our shows in the Federation Council Chambers on Facebook. And last but not least, I am on Twitter at The Goddess Livia. That's TheGoddessLivia, where I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. Brandon, would you like to tell our listeners about other shows on the network?
You can join Amy Nelson and Mark White discussing all Star Trek all the time on All Good Things. Rhea Papageorgiou, Kevin Scharf, Amy Nelson, and Joe Keegan discuss TNG all the time on board the Galaxy class. Who Wouldn't Want to Be a Kid Again? Join Chris Tribuzio, Patrick Devlin, and Casey Pettitt as they talk all things under the Disney umbrella with Mickey's Marvels. And they've just come out with a first episode in a bit here, so it's nice to have them back after their hiatus. Take a stroll through Star City and discover all things that make Arrow Arrow with Lance Laster and Cavante Chillis on Always Hold On to Arrow. And dive into some cryptozoology with Ken Tripp and Zach Moore as they take a lighthearted and fun look at the cultural phenomenon of Bigfoot on Sasquatch.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for tuning into Infinite Diversity, and thank you to our executive producers, Ken Tripp, Tony Robinson, and Zach Moore, and Brandon Shamatella. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music, and Tony Robinson for the awesome show art. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and please subscribe in whatever your favorite podcast app is, and rate us there too. If you'd like to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at UFP Earth, or our show specifically at IDIC Podcast. You can also talk about any and all of the UFP podcasts in our aforementioned Facebook group called the Federation Council Chambers. You can also email us at infinitediversity@ufp.earth. On the next episode, we'll be talking about episode 7 of season 4 of Discovery, and that is called But to Connect. Until then, peace and long life.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.
All right. Well, let's just jump right into
Chrissie,
that
are you
subspace rift.
Frozen?
Huh?
Shoot.
At least she's not blinking.
Am I frozen?
Hold on.
Oh,
Am
yes,
I back?
you were frozen.
There,
Are you back?
not anymore.
Back.
we're back.
Okay. My internet connection is unstable. Yes, I'm kind of in the boondocks. Okay.
I tell you, so is my emotional state right now after being in that transporter buffer for 15 minutes. Let me tell you.
Completely understand. Yes.
We'll have you see Culber.
Yeah.
Unstable.